Hello, everyone. This is Molly from the Casually Molly podcast, and I just wanted to introduce you to my friends at the Natty Cat. This one is for you cool cats and kittens who can't get enough of wordplay and fur babies. The Natty Cat's natural soy candles feature inventive scent combinations in glass jars with clever kitties on the labels. Hand-purred with locally sourced natural soy wax, the Natty Cat's candles wood wicks create a cozy fireside crackling sound, perfect for curling up on the couch. Remember, for all of your candle and scented oil needs, please visit our friends at the Natty Cat either on Facebook or Instagram.
Have you ever wanted to get your shit together? Scrap it, look through the lens and capture it. But first world problems are getting you down. Disabled, salty, need a lap to fix that frown. Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. Well, she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Casually Molly podcast. I'm your host, Molly Ambergy. Remember that you can always casually subscribe to the podcast on any audio streaming services, YouTube, and we even have some clips and full episodes on Facebook Watch. But enough about that for right now. We got the promo out of the way, but let's give it up for our next call-in guest. Give it up for Tonee Roper. Oh, the crowd goes wild.
I love it.
Yes, you, first of all, I know I said this earlier, but now I'm going to say it on the podcast so people can hear it. You look great. What's your secret?
Thank you. Well, for this setting, I have a ring light. It makes such a difference. I know everyone's doing Zoom and all of that. And here was my secret for this morning. I drove in. I'm from St. Louis, and I just drove back to Springfield, Illinois at like 7 a.m. Do a bold lip. That's all you have to do. I've done more since then, but you don't have to put any other makeup on. If you put on a bold lip, everyone just be staring at it. They won't even know you haven't done your hair or brushed your teeth. Well, yeah, okay, they'll know that.
Oh, there, right. I know. Luckily we're at a distance, and I'm just blending into this back brick wall here. But I definitely have. I drink coffee all day until I get here at the studio. But I'm like, oh, I need to like bring like a toothbrush or something with me. But it's the same thing. I always have like a bold like red or kind of like pinkish hue. I don't do it all the time, but I was like, all right, I got a red turtleneck sweater here on, so I better have something that's kind of, otherwise you just like, you just kind of look like a little dead. So I was
going to wear hot pink, and then I realized, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to be red and pink today. Which is the thing, just not for me today.
just not today, but it could be at some point.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I am so happy to see you. To kind of give a background about Tonee Roper, you are probably, and I mean, obviously we're friends. We met through mutual friends here in St. Louis. Now you obviously don't live here anymore, but this is your hometown, your home base, and we are based from out of here. So I'm always happy to see you. But you are probably one of the most accomplished people I have ever met. Like you have. Oh my God. Stop. You have such a resume, and I'm probably going to mess it up, so I'm going to let you talk about it. But you are known best. A lot of people, when I talk to anybody in St. Louis, they will like see you on Facebook with me and stuff, and they're like, oh my God, isn't that the radio personality from Z107 at one point? And I was like, yeah. So why don't you explain a little bit about your radio personality career and explain it a little bit better than probably I would be doing right now?
Sure. No, thank you. What a great introduction. I appreciate you. I actually started in 2009 was my first, I guess, professional radio. Started with iHeartRadio, and yes, Z1077. That was my first. Neon Trees, the first song I ever announced on air, and it was Everybody Talks. And I was on Z, and then from there, I've worked on a lot of stations in St. Louis. It was Magic from there, 93.7 The Bull, country music. I did Alt 104.9. Before that even existed, it was Wild 104.9. I don't want to miss anything. Gosh.
I love that this is like Tonee's issue. I don't want to miss anything like any of the other stations I've been on.
Stations. Yeah. And they were all just so special and like so many different ways to me. And then I did a little producing. I was a local producer for Ryan Seacrest. And then if you guys remember it used to be the MJ and BJ morning show.
Yeah.
It was just MJ. Yeah. And so I was one of their local producers as well, little production and commercials and such. And then just took a leap about, I guess, a year and a half ago and moved to Illinois working with Newhoff Media, which is a fabulous company in Illinois and Indiana, 20 stations. And I'm on 2 of their stations. I also work with a couple other companies, and I'm on air in Greenville, Mississippi, and American Samoa with Delta Radio Network and South Seas Broadcasting. And then I work for Benstown. They're an imaging company where I get to do commercials, like a lot of voiceover work.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you're just so that's another thing I didn't even know about you, was that you were in the production side about things too. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what would like listeners like explain how this like even came up to be? Like, I don't know, like, did you just wake up one day and be like, hey, I want to be a radio personality and produce in radio? Because it's such a fun field. It's such a fun career. And I'm sure it's like all about networking. But what got you into that? Yeah.
Okay, not at all. This is the honest story. I tell everyone. I went to St. Louis University. I was a theater major. Theater was always my first love. Yes, girl.
Yes, we were theater, and I feel like I missed you. Like, that's the thing. I missed you in the theater. Like, we both went to St. Louis University, and Bridget's like, yeah, she was in theater too. And I'm like, I feel like I just missed Tonee.
By like a year, seriously. Right. But great experience there. I loved it. I always knew from literally like 5 years old, I was like, I want to do theater. I want to be on Broadway when I grow up, and moved to New York and all this stuff. And then, it's so funny to think about it now, being in a pandemic in 2020. But when I graduated, it was right when the housing market in 2008 and all that crashed, and we were in a recession, which now seems like nothing, but it was a big deal then. And you have this degree and jobs were just hard to come by. And I was doing the whole, where you ask your mom, like, do you know anyone who's in my field, and informational interviews. And I just had this light bulb click in my head. You're so smart at like 21. And I thought, you know what? I want to make it big in this business, and I want to make all this money, and it's going to work out. I'm like, I'll do radio instead of theater, which, let me tell you, if you're thinking about like ways to get rich quick or famous or anything like that, this is not it. Neither is theater. Neither is none of it. But I'm very passionate. I love what I do. I wouldn't do it any other way. And so I started in radio promotions. So you don't see this these days, but when you go out and you're at a concert and there's like the promo team and the station vehicle and the pop-up banners and all that, I did that. I wasn't on air, but I did that.
Very cool. That is so cool though. That's fantastic, because I've never seen that. Oh, see, there you go.
Yes, it was. Yeah. And then from there, I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do permanently. I knew being on air, being the talent, being the personality has always been the dream. But again, take that foot in the door, especially when you're starting off. Yes. And I did. And I just kept telling people, you just tell the right people, this is what I want to do. I can be good at it. My background was in theater, but it worked really well. I'm like, I'll work hard at it. And it happened eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I was really lucky to be put on a great station in a medium to large size market. Pretty young.
Exactly. So. No, and that's what I love about you too, is that you're so passionate about what you do. Like, it's not just a job for you. I hate to be like, it's not a job for you. It's a lifestyle. But like, it really is.
It's a disease. One of my coworkers said, you've been bit by the radio bug. It is. And you can't get rid of it.
But like, what I'll ask you too is like, I'm sure it did, because I feel the same way. Being a theater major, people are like, oh, doing stand up or like doing a podcast, you don't seem shy behind a microphone. And I feel like that probably applies to doing radio as well, and like talking with people and producing with people. Do you feel like your theater major kind of helped you go into the communications field and helped you kind of revamp your whole dream per se?
Yeah, yes and no. It's really interesting, because I'm always amazed when I do interviews. People are like, no, I don't want to talk. I'm like, no one's going to see your face. No one will even probably know it's you. But I get it. Public speaking is a fear. Even though on radio, I don't It's different. But I feel like when I first started off, some of my feedback was that I was very dramatic and over the top, and I am, but that was a little different, I think, than some radio folks. It's a little bit different. But then it's just become me. I mean, it really is who I am. But it has helped. I mean, if you ever heard, they say radio is theater of the mind. Since you don't see, you're creating these stories and painting a picture, and that's where it does come in. And even in theater, I took things like, voice and diction and certain things that help me, the different warm-ups you're doing for a play. Yeah, it's still, I feel like it's a similar mindset as radio.
100%. And it's scripted too. So like there's a lot of things that you have to kind of look at too. And then also you got to kind of put your own personality into it. But I get that too, where it's like, and it's a theater major thing where especially like we were just talking earlier when hi Key, who was doing our tech. She's like, you kind of talk with your hands, right? And I was like, 100%. And I totally own it. I do it all the time, whether I'm on stage, whether I'm behind a microphone. So I'm sure you probably feel the same way. You're just like, but it just comes out of you. Like you have to feel like you have to discuss and like explain it to people, especially when people can't see you. You're like, this is my way of trying to do that. So
yes. And it's so fun. Not all radio people are like this, but I've had some current coworkers and past coworkers to watch them do their show. And usually they're in a soundproof booth, so you're just looking through a window. But to see them, they're not just in front of a microphone like this. They're like, and it's so great. It's so entertaining to watch because you're still communicating. You're still talking with the person. You're talking as if you're connecting to one person. There just might be, thousands or a million people on the other side that you're not looking at. And I would say the hardest thing about theater to radio is not having that live audience. Yes. I'm better with it now, but when I first started, gosh, that was hard just imagining. And that's what I think any kind of performer is going through now, being on this video chat kind of thing, is you don't get that immediate feedback, which is so important. You just got to imagine it. I did do a play during this pandemic just for fun. And gosh, and people could type in like, oh, that was great, or ha, ha, ha. It's still not the same as being in the room with warm bodies giving you that energy and that immediate reaction. You don't get that in radio, and that's a little different, but I still love it.
Have you done any live shows with radio? Like, like sometimes I'll see like a radio show do like a live show, I guess, like at a different event or some kind of like festival or anything. Is that something that you've done or maybe you're possibly interested in doing?
I have not. I've done, like stage announcements, like before maybe a concert. Remember those? Yes. Been on stage, talk to the audience. Or I do live on locations, type things. Mm-hmm. I would say that's different than a show. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I have not, and I would absolutely love to. I've gone to them in Las Vegas for Steve Harvey. I've seen him, they sit at the table. Everyone on the show has their mics, and they're literally doing their show in front of hundreds of people. But the people on, at home on the radio hear what they normally would hear. So, absolutely. That would be a wonderful thing. Or I know, gosh, what was it? It was an app that a lot of DJs were using about 10 years ago to actually tape the whole show. You could watch it while they're, I think it was like Parachute or something. I can't think of what it was called.
I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't like that. Like if someone was watching the whole time while I'm in the studio, like, gosh, no, because that's not what I do. It's not a play. It's not a TV show.
Oh, 100%. Well, I think that's kind of a cool, I love how you call it like theater of the mind, because it's, I feel like a lot of times they'll listen to somebody that's a radio personality and they'll have an image of who they think they are in their head. Mm-hmm. There's a radio station I listened to when I lived in Cincinnati, and now I do because of Spotify. You can stream all these different people now, which is like kind of like reinventing my childhood all over again. But they're called Jeff and Jen on Q102, right? And they always say, they're great. I love them. And what I love about them is that they go, people all the time are like, oh, you don't look like who I thought you looked like. And I'm sure a lot of radio personalities get that, but is that something you've ever received?
Yeah. And then I feel so bad. Then people are like, you should be on TV. Like,
oh, that's a great compliment.
It is, but I like what I do. And it just gets, and I have friends who are in television, and I can't imagine, like, I did all this for you. Like,
Oh,
I
thank
can't
you.
imagine doing this every day. And not saying we don't take pictures in the studio or video, but it's a
Right.
lot different being in a soundproof booth by yourself than, like my friends who are news anchors who are in front of the cameras and the lights their whole shift. Like, oh gosh. I mean, I would do it. I'm not trying to turn down any job opportunities or anything right now, but
It's like somebody's going to watch this podcast and be like, I was going to put Tonee Roper as my news anchor, but you know what? She just wants to be by herself in a booth. So,
and that's another hard thing from radio to our theater is, I work with a lot of people. I mean, of course, we have an engineer. We have all these people, these moving parts, but usually it's me, and especially during the pandemic, it is literally me. And then so much is on, technology. You're emailing or you're texting. With a play, obviously that can't happen. You guys have to be in a room. The director's there watching you and all that. So it's very different in that way.
I was about to say too, what's radio been like ever since the pandemic has happened?
Oh,
that was
where do you want to start? So what's been interesting for me is I have actually moved markets, moved houses, moved everything during the pandemic. So it was different. And my office where I just came from actually moved office buildings during a pandemic. Oh. And we did something very innovative. We went from more of a traditional space to, I forget what they're called, but like a WeWorks building where you have multiple offices and multiple space. The salespeople can just pick up their laptops, plug in anywhere, that kind of space.
Yes.
Where we have limited studio space. Instead of every single station and every single person on air having their own studio, we share it. With technology, you can log in, change it. It's more of a smaller space. And right when we were moving, I mean, that had nothing to do with the pandemic, but right when we were moving, all this happened. So a lot of people are working from home. A lot of my colleagues and coworkers are in their basement, in their closets, and wherever. I don't like being alone that much.
Yeah.
So I mainly have been going to work this whole time, but I've been, as my company was moving, the only person on my floor, the only person using all these studio spaces. I was the only person there. Now we don't spend a lot of time together in the same room, or we're really cautious, or we've had it where we're not sure we need to get tested for COVID. So now we're all back to working from home. Yeah. So gosh, it has changed in so many ways. I mean, just adapting. I do music stations, but we serve the community. So now we're doing news updates at the beginning of how many people are hospitalized in our county,
Yeah.
We're talking to our local health officials, and, just stuff that's really important to listeners, whether you're a music station, a news station. It's kind of changed a little bit of our focus. Contesting stopped. I mean, a lot of concerts were a big thing, and music, and you're giving away tickets and all these contests. Well, that almost ceased to exist for a little bit there. And now we're adapting with virtual. And I was one of those people, gosh, I remember it was in March when all this started happening. I was like, we're going to do an all school prom at the hotel, invite all the kids. And then, months later, I'm like, okay, we're not gonna be able to do it for another year or so. So just really a lot of adapting, a lot of working from home, getting just technology set up so you can do things from home. Because I knew if I got COVID and was still able to work, I need everything comfortable at my house that I can still do my job. That wasn't really a concern before as much. Mm-hmm. And I think at most companies, a lot of people, unfortunately, had to lay off people. So you're doing a lot more job experience. Thus comes in me doing a lot of production right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. What's so great about you is you are such an asset because you are so well-rounded. So I understand how, oh, you're very welcome, of course. But I understand how you feel because it is kind of hard to be, you and I are both very social people. That's why we're friends. That's why we get along. So I'm sure I did the same thing. I think at first we just weren't sure about what was happening. Mm-hmm. No one really knew, we knew that something was going on, but we didn't know the severity necessarily. And then once things started only 50 people here, or like things were shutting down, then things started getting really serious. So I'm sure, like, especially when you're supposed to be an upbeat music station or like something that, like, I know what I do. I used to get up a lot earlier for work when I was working at the hotel, and I would turn on local radio stations because that's what's on early in the morning.
Right.
And you get to know these people, get to know them in the sense, not to be weird, just, you're like, oh, this is the so-and-so that, is for this,
absolutely.
whatever. Exactly. So you get to, it was definitely a different dynamic shift. Like you were talking about, where normally you're like, oh, let's do second date update and let's see, no one could go out or go on a date. So there was none of that. And you start hearing, a lot of serious news stuff, but go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and then it was a balance. Looking at the comments people write from, different national radio shows and such, people are like, we're tired of hearing about this. But then on the other hand, people want to be informed.
They do.
And then at first I told myself, I was like, when I'm talking like the first week or two of this, I was just like, I'm going to make it a plan. I'm not going to talk about COVID at all. Like,
right.
That was, but
I'm going to be the escape that people need.
Right. But then it was like, you can't. And now it's a part of it's what we do. Now we had sponsored elements, like who do you mask for? We're working with, our local government on, trying to get people to wear masks and stay safe and talk about regulations, or restaurants and how they're adapting. That's like segments now, like spotlighting businesses and what they're doing different because of COVID. But really, none of us knew. I really thought this was going to be like a 2-week thing and we'd be, honestly.
A lot. No, but in all honesty, probably there were some people that did, not because we it's just more of that, you're like, oh, these things are going to be fine. Like we're going to be fine. It's in our specific lifetime, we never experienced something like a pandemic. And it was always something, at least for me. And I feel like a lot of people I talk to can relate to that because they understand my positivity. I'm like, oh, which we do have brilliant scientists and brilliant doctors. I'm like, this will be settled. Like, this is like the way that people are talking about, that's like something out of a movie or something.
Right.
Yeah. And then once you start, you're like, oh, wow, we really need to stay informed. And what's wonderful, I'll ask your opinion on this too. Sometimes people are like, oh, we won't need radio anymore. It's dying. It's all this stuff. But I feel like, if anything, radio has been such an asset during this time. It's been an asset even for me creatively. Like I've been able to promote this podcast and perform audio shows and just different things that people, since we can't necessarily leave or go see a big show right now, radio's almost been like kind of a saving grace in that regard to report the news, the traffic, things that you would already do originally. But now it's like, okay, Tonee Roper is going to tell me about how I can keep safe from COVID-19 today. And I'm just wondering if that's kind of how you feel at this time as well.
Absolutely. I do hear that a lot. People all the time when they hear what I do, they'd be like, oh, I don't listen in my car. And let's be honest, many people aren't in their cars going to work like they were anyway. Radio, like, again, any industry this year, radio has been adapting for years, and it has to with technology. Our company, we have radio apps. You can stream us online. And you can listen on your car radio or your house radio, whatever. A lot of times I'm listening on my television or on my laptop or even my cell phone, I listen. And the other thing is people forget about local radio. Like you said, and you mentioned some of your favorite shows, you're connecting with a person. Well, you can get on a playlist, and I do it too, and get on these different apps, but you're connecting with me. I'm your friend who lives in your neighborhood.
Exactly.
We're talking about our community. We're not talking about what's going on in New York and LA, which is fun sometimes. But really, you want to know the local stuff. And for me, I live in a smaller market. So where I was in Bloomington, Normal's a township. There isn't a major news network, let alone like in St. Louis, there's, I think, 3 or 4. So literally when there is a storm, when there's stuff going on, even now here in Springfield, if there's a boil order, I'm going to tell you about it. I'm your news source for important stuff and entertainment, and just to talk about what's going on in our community. It's so important. And I don't think that can ever be replaced or replicated. And I love radio. I think stands the test of time as long as we're able to adapt, which again, every industry is doing it. Technology's changed everything. And it's just, if you can embrace it.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying too. So I pay for Spotify Premium every month just because eventually you're like, oh, I want to listen to my music and this. But that's like one of the main things I do is I listen to radio stations now because they're like, oh, yeah, just like download your Spotify or download your app for the radio station. Because if I'm at work, I don't really have access to a real radio. But it's just like what you said, I can like go on YouTube now, or I can like go on Spotify. And that's what you're talking about is the adapting for things. So I think that's awesome that, you know, radio is proving to not be necessarily quote unquote dying, as a lot of people tell me all the time, like, which I think is always a really morbid thing to say, by the way. Like, I'm always like, please, it's an old timey thing to say. I'm surprised millennials even say it too. I'm like, but I do think it's great that it is a little weird. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go on a rant. That's going to be my casual rant for the day. Please stop telling me that radio is dying and like, get informed. Okay. Like I don't understand it.
And it's so interesting too, because radio connects with, I mean, I'm sure all your favorite radio personalities and stations has, you know, an Instagram or a Facebook. And then on the advertiser side, it's just reinforcing it. And we can reach people like in different ways. Cause like you said, there's these other technology things, but when you're at work, you're not doing all those things. But radio, you know, you go into a store, they're playing our station, you know?
Yes.
And it's just a great way to reach your consumers, you know, for advertising. Radio just reinforces things like other medias can't do, you know, or even television.
Yes. And especially because it's audio and you can stream it. And I mean, I do see like there are some stations, like you said, that do film it too. So you can like look them up on YouTube. But what I'll ask you is, you know, you talked about interviewing. Has there been anybody specifically that you enjoyed interviewing during your career? Or did you just love everybody you've talked to?
Oh, gosh. Overall, I love everyone I talk to. It's just always great experiences. Ones that stand out, the first one that comes to mind, by default, I got to interview Tamar Braxton years ago. And and I was so excited because it was supposed to be someone else because I was, you know, still pretty new in my career. And they were like, I can't do this. I don't have time. And I'm like, yes. And I love Tonee Braxton. And even as a kid, you know, people be like, Tonee Braxton.
Oh,
so I
100%.
hope I didn't. I hope I didn't offend her because I did totally be like, Tonee, we're like sisters. Let's see. So during the I have done more interviews this year because of COVID than I ever have. And it's been really connecting with local business owners. And I would have to say, those really, I mean, I know they're not celebrities, but those have been just the most heartwarming and connecting and knowing that what I do really makes a difference. And just people just lighting up your life. I mean, there's been so many people I've said, man, when I can come by and shake your hand one day, I will. And one of the questions I've always asked people earlier on in the pandemic is, do you have a message for the community? And some of them have just, I mean, they're just like air hugs, like through the radio waves. And, you know, we edit audio and you maybe don't hear the whole thing, but to get to talk to some of these people who are adjusting their business, who are your neighbors, I mean, that's the best. That really is the best part of what I do.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. Like a lot of people always say, they're like, what are your favorite interviews for the podcast? And it's just like what you talked about. Like, I feel like there's been so much change with Casually Molly just because we're in the pandemic and I finally have a little bit more time to focus on changing it and making it a certain avenue. But like sometimes sitting down with like local comedians or like just local businesses in your area, you get to know people in your community. They get to know you. And those are the people that are going to share Casually Molly, that are going to rave about it, review about it. And it just makes you feel so good because you're like, oh my God, like, not that I'm like trying, I mean, I don't feel like I'm making a big difference the same way you are, but I just having that personal connection with somebody is always just the best feeling in the world. Like, even if I couldn't like change everything happening right now, at least like I made a connection with one human and that's enough. But I'll make you, you're right, I know, it's just so emotional.
And don't say you're not. You have been very inspirational to me. Like, I've seen some of the work, no, seriously, that you've done early on, you know, and then now you have your whole like professional setup and stuff. And I always said this about you. I'm like, Molly is doing. And that's sometimes for me, like I get these grandiose ideas and dreams of what I want to do, but it's like, well, but I don't have $1,000 to rent the studio space. I can't buy this $500,000 mic and studio. It doesn't matter to get started. Just do. And I've always said, you've always just did and grown so much and have big things coming your way. So I love that. And that's been inspiring. So don't say you're not, because you are.
There's a lot of Lady Levin. I love this. Yeah, it was funny. You were actually my second guest with other St. Louis local comedian, Kate Barton, who's a good friend of mine as well. And I remember I was actually listening to it a little bit while we were sitting, as if you were at work with me. I just pretend, because that's what it's like with podcasting. You're listening to somebody like, oh, that's right, I'm at work. This person is not with me right now. But I was laughing because we were in my loft on my phone, and our topic was, of course, like it should be, casually dating. And we were talking about meeting people at the gas station. And I can't remember who brought it up, but I was just like, does that work? And you and Kate were like, oh, we've definitely met people at the gas station. I was like, whoa, what? Like, is this? And that's when I was single then too. I was like, am I missing something here? Is my future husband at the BP or the Quick Trip and I didn't know about it? Like,
I'm a mess. That was, and I have listened to that since it was released. And like I said, went from your loft on a cell phone. And what's interesting is, you know, some audio snobs. I mean, of course, it probably not the best soundproofing and audio quality and all that.
No,
but
it wasn't.
Now, but now it's all about content creation, you know, and everyone's, you know, doing something, and that's more so what was important. And that was a great podcast. You should go back and listen. It's pretty entertaining. I listened to it again not too long ago.
And that's what's so funny too, is like a lot of people right now, because we're in the pandemic, people are using their phones and it's almost becoming like the trend now. So I'm like, was I on to something? But I was just in a different period of time. But it is funny to listen back to it, because obviously, no, is the audio quality going to be as good as you and I right now? Probably not. But if anybody's like trying to figure out casually dating in 2020 specifically, and would like to laugh about that, you know, because I know a lot of people right now, they're like, how do we date during 2020? Like, this is difficult as shit, you know, like, you can just laugh at us. Like, don't worry, you know, your possibilities are endless, because Tonee and Kate even told me you could meet somebody at a gas station. So your future husband or wife or person could just be there, and it's okay if you meet them at the pump. Pump it up.
And now it's like, don't come near me. If anyone approaches me anywhere in public, I'm just like, even my parents, they try to hug me and I'm like, coronavirus.
I was just in Cincinnati visiting my parents for Thanksgiving, because we all tested negative, which was great. So it was nice to see them, but like they're older and like they haven't, I mean, granted, they wear masks. They haven't really been like, they don't really go, a lot of parents, older parents are like this, but they don't really go out of their 5-minute radius as it is. But like, because they don't see me, they don't even think about it. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, oh, like I tell them it's not because I don't love you. It's just that I'm trying. And my mom's like, don't worry, we've been good. And I was like, I get it. But like, I'm actually out in the workforce. Like, I've been working this whole time. So I don't want to give anything, especially I don't want to take anything back with me either.
Right.
So, like, but
so my parents are the opposite. Oh. And my mom, in terms of, I just remember one time, so I took a test too before I went home for Thanksgiving, but I just remember early on, my mom was going to hug me, and she usually puts her mask on, but she was just one of those, I was leaving out early in the morning again, and she didn't have anything. She put a sock, like clean sock, and give me a hug. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is our life now.
That is
serious. I'm so serious.
Like, you know what? Either we look like we're going to rob a train or rob our laundry. I don't know what it is with people. Like, oh my God, that is the best.
Everyone looks so crazy.
You know, and we don't even mean to. Like, shout out to Abby Eilerman from the Daily Disco. I got this cute mask, and it says Mommy on it. And then I got another one that says it's going to be a holiday mask, and it's going to say I slay. Like, rather
girl.
Just like, but, you know, like, right. So I'm trying to like make it festive. Oh, but this is what I was going to tell you, Tonee. So speaking of Tamar, I've actually met Tamar Braxton as well. Yes. Whoa. Probably when you were interviewing her. She was staying when I used to work at Hotel Ignacio. they had her in, and like her team called us and they were like, yeah, Tamar is going to check in and all this stuff. She was so nice to me. Like her assistants came in, they were like, she's here. So of course I'm like, oh my God, I gotta like be on the ball, which I would have been anyway, no matter who.
Right.
But she was so sweet because her assistants were like, and you have the suite ready for Tamar, like you do when you're an assistant. And Tamar was the sweetest person. She goes, don't worry about it. She's like, I'm a normal girl. You just give me a normal room, whatever you have. And I was like, I said, well, you do have the suite, so I'm going to check you into that if that's okay.
Wow,
like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, she was great. So it was definitely, and of course, like I wasn't interviewing her, so I couldn't be like, oh, I love your, I love you or anything.
Right.
So I just was like, your room is, on the 5th floor.
Inside, you're like,
right. That's the part. Like when and especially at Hotel Ignacio, being in the middle of the city, there were to be like, there were a ton of celebrities that stayed with us, but every once in a while, like we had Andy Grammer, for instance, he stayed with us. Nicest person too. Yeah. He and his team, again, totally adorable. And like what I loved about him was that even though he's famous, he wasn't like, oh, like I'm famous. Everybody get excited for me. Like he just sat in the lobby like you do as a normal human being waiting for his ride. And it was funny because my friend Tina was like, he is so cute and so nice. What kind of music? I was like, Tina, Google Andy Grammer. And she's like, oh my God, that's who I spoke to? Like what?
Oh, wow. And honestly, I have found most of the people I have met, these celebrity stuff, most people are like that.
Yeah.
Most.
I just always, even though I'm a pretty positive, I always like assume the worst. I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know, especially when you work at a hotel, you just assume the worst with everybody. It's just, so when somebody is nice, you're like, oh, okay, this is great. But it was funny you mentioned Tamar because I was like, oh, I've actually met her too. That's really
so
small.
Funny. It probably was the same time.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, thanks, Tamar, for being awesome. That's really great. Yeah. Thank you, Andy Grammer. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
But what I'll say too, yeah, so that's great. But, radio can sometimes be live. I mean, I guess I'm sure there's times where you have to pre-record some things and that's cool too. But was there any time where something was live and went wrong and you had to figure it out? Because I'm sure you probably would keep something cool, calm, and collected, unless you're perfect and you've done... Everything's just been good for you.
I'm trying to think. It's like, and that might not get me in trouble.
Right.
So actually, I'm really lucky, minus because of coronavirus and I got to record at home. I'm live 5 days a week. I am so lucky. And that is not typical, I don't think, for radio anymore. Mm-hmm. And I love it. Usually it's something like, oh, the mic wasn't on and like I start talking. I know that's boring stuff. No one wants to hear that.
That happens though. That totally happens.
Yeah. Or you just say stuff. You just say the wrong stuff. I'm trying to, gosh.
That's okay. I mean,
there was something.
It's kind of nice that you're stumbling on trying to find something wrong, which means like that's why you've been hired because you're doing everything right. But I mean, it does happen.
Yeah, or I put it out of my mind, or I know a good one. Oh, this is good. So I can't think of what it was. It was something like this day in history, a big fight, like a big wrestling match or something. Sure. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about it, but honestly, it wasn't something I knew. It was because I researched it. I knew. And so I'm looking at it. I had my notes written down on the screen and I'm like, oh, I don't know. It was like a Vander Holyfield versus someone. I've heard of these people, but I'm not the biggest sports person.
Yeah.
And then I like Vegas, and I know a lot of people go to Vegas for like boxing matches and stuff. So I mentioned, I was like, oh yeah, this, people go to Vegas for these big matches and all this stuff for boxing and blah, blah. I was talking about two wrestlers, or something like that, or vice versa. And, my mom's my biggest fan, and she called me out on that. She's like, yeah, that's not even the right sport. I'm like, oh. Dang. But that's kind of the fun of like, people know my personality. I don't claim to be like a big sports guru. And I think it's more fun. I mean, hopefully it's more relatable. Women are like, someone's going to call me back and say, wow, she's so dumb. But then on the other hand, someone's like, I get it. My husband's always like, who? Mike Tyson, what? So that was pretty bad. And there's nothing you can do. I mean, I have, depending on where I'm at in my show or my day, I have, you can go back on and be like, oops, I goofed, or you don't.
Sometimes that happens though. I was actually listening. There was a gal that she's a local, again, great interview. Love her. Her name is Tina D-Ball. She's fantastic. You might have seen her probably perform here when you came to one of my shows, but we were talking
comedian?
about,
probably so.
yeah, comedian. Yeah, she's if you saw her, you would, trust me, you would know who she was, but we had a great interview. She was fantastic, but we were laughing about like our hair, being from certain backgrounds because she's Russian, I'm Italian. And I brought up, I meant to say Goodfellas, but I said The Godfather and I named a different actor. And I still am like kicking myself in the ass because I can't go back and be like, oh, sorry, by the way, when I was talking to Tina, I said the wrong movie because like, nobody gives a shit. Like but
right.
at the same time.
Yeah. You did it. And I'm like, well, at least we sounded good. Saying the wrong thing.
Exactly.
I mean,
like we just went through it and she didn't care, obviously. Like we were still going back and forth and it was fine. But I thought about that later when I listened to it. I was like, oh shoot. And I also was just getting over the flu and I said, I said the movie just with the wrong G. Like I was like, Goodfellas, The Godfather.
That's so funny. Yeah. So that's usually the extent of it. I mean, sometimes some technical stuff, it's boring stuff. Like the music was too quiet underneath,
But
I want to talk
happens.
about. Yeah. But it's also exciting. I mean, and I know I'm a nerd and I listen to the radio for different things, but like I can tell when a show is live, because you hear those stumbles or those mistakes or like, oh, hey, producer, can you turn the mic's not up, and you hear those things that just make it more real. It's a live show because even with the big wigs, it happens.
Yeah. I personally love when something's live. Like obviously like pre-recorded is fine too, but when something's live and you're listening to it, like especially when I have to make long journeys like back to Cincinnati or drive somewhere, it's so much more exciting because you're like, I'm a part of it. And it's like, it entertains you because you're like, what's going to happen next? Like,
and I can't say this for everybody. I would say most probably entertainers, there's a different energy. I mean, again, you don't have the audience right there, but I think I'm pretty good taped and live, but there's definitely a difference. Thank you. But and others have said it. I'm not just, but but there's definitely a difference and it's an excitement too.
Yes.
I mean, I would say when I first started, it's a terror, it's a fear that what I say right now, you're going to hear in real time. What if I mess up? And then, you learn, I guess like anything, even with like acting, you have different crutches. So right now I'm on middays, which starts at 10 a.m. So I used to say if I blah, 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 I'd be like, oh my God, and I'm not even drunk or I haven't even been drinking. That joke doesn't really work at 10 o'clock in the morning as well. But you learn different crutches or like if I get the song name wrong, I'm just like, I'm just so excited. I just love Bruno Mars. Or, you just find ways to play with it.
Yes.
And just like you do stand up, you just find ways to keep going. The show keeps moving.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh, that's exactly how I feel. But it's true. You do have like some crutches and you're like, oh, that's hilarious though. I can't say this at 10 a.m. But I guess during the pandemic, maybe you can because some people are doing that.
And for different audiences and, but you find something and then you don't want to be, it is a crutch, but you don't want it to come off as a crutch that you use it can't use like every week, but
Yeah.
Now and then.
I feel you.
I was thinking of another radio faux pas, I guess you'll call that I had. This one I think is pretty funny. Do you remember the song? No, I can't. Is it Florence and the Machine? Such Sweet Nothings?
Maybe.
Sweet nothing, sweet nothing. It's like an EDM.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's like 10 years old or something. But I remember I was announcing it and I was like, here's Such Sweet Nothings. I was like, I don't know why they call it like that. It totally should be Sexy Heaven. And then I played the song. Realized, well, it's because she's saying Sweet Nothings. Duh, that's the name, why it's the name of the song. I swore she was saying, I'm living on sexy heaven. And that's totally not what she's saying. But the way I said it on air was like so matter of fact, like, this is stupid. Why would they come up with this name for this song? Embarrassing. And at that time, that was like, Billboard Top 100 hit song. We were playing it all the time. And It's kind of like, now I'm getting really way off subject, the T.I. song, You Can Have Whatever You Like.
Yes.
I always thought he was saying, he's talking about this lavish lifestyle, right? I always thought he was saying snacks on deck. Like, girl, you want some peanuts? You want, Twizzlers? I got you. Whatever you want. He's saying stacks, Like, now that I never said on air. Thank goodness. Someone had to correct me in real life. It was just as embarrassing. They thought it was funny.
Oh my God, that is like, I'm like trying to be composed, but that is like the best thing. Snacks on deck. You know what? That is such a turn on if somebody tells me snacks on deck.
Right. I just imagine I'm on this yacht and there's and then crab legs and stuff going by. That's good. I mean, I'll take the stacks of money too, but I was excited about the snacks.
Can we have both stacks? I feel like that should be thrown into both that. You can have whatever you like.
Yes, you can have whatever you like, and it's not good if I don't have good snacks. So.
Oh my God, that's the best thing. I love your I'm glad I didn't say that on radio, but I so wish that you did because how you were saying about, you're like, maybe people can relate. Everybody of every age, gender, personality, they're going to be able to relate to snacks on deck. So
yeah, because when I'm on my yacht, that private yacht that my TI is taking me on, I expect there to be good food.
I also love, this is what I love about you, Tonee, is that like when I think of snacks, I'm like, oh, just my variety pack. And you're like, girl, we're going to be on a yacht with crab legs. Like, you bring me to a whole new level. And I'm like, I got to get up there with Tonee. I got to get on this yacht.
Well, the whole song, I mean, I can't think of all the words to it, but he's talking about this lavish lifestyle. So that's where you got to go with it. Absolutely.
And now, exactly. And then you can finally have that live radio show you always wanted on the lavish yacht. Just being like, hey, here I am.
Awesome.
Snacks on deck. This is Tonee Roper coming at you live.
At first, it's kind of embarrassing. I should have said earlier, when you said live radio, here's my theater mind. I go back to, I was thinking like the old time radio shows where they're like, and someone's drinking water. Gulp, gulp, gulp. And the school bell rings. Ding, ding, ding. Which I think would be cool too. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, we never experienced this in our life, but you remember your great grandparents talked about it? I don't know.
So Shirley Temple, because I used to watch her all the time growing up.
Yeah.
She had some kind of it was like Shirley Temple shorts. And there was a guy that was was like the teacher in the town. And he was in love with, Shirley Temple was one of the students, obviously. And she was trying to kind of bring these two people together.
Okay, the teacher wasn't in love with the student, because that sounds like a whole nother.
No,
show.
God, no. Oh, no. Whole other story that you can find probably on Hulu or FX. But this was, she was trying to get these two people together, and this guy was in love with this woman who ran a donut shop because she had snacks on deck, which made sense. So, and it was called Dora's Dunkin' Donuts. And I remember what they did was he was to win this woman's heart over. He did exactly what you were talking about. It was in a radio station. And they were and live, in the same old timey 1920s voice, or whenever this movie was made. If it wasn't in the 20s, I apologize, because I bet you some historian's gonna come after me. Yeah, who knows? They're gonna be Shirley Temple, and I'll be like, all right, I'm sorry, I was young when I watched this.
Disclaimer.
And, right, disclaimer. I was young. Okay, so anyway, they're on the radio, and they're coming to you. It's gonna be so and so with the high school band, and he directed the whole thing, and I don't know. Yeah, he played this song, and it was Dora's Dunkin' Donuts, they're the best in the land. And then people are or something.
Yeah.
So it's exactly what you were talking about. So who knows? I feel cool. Theater companies are starting to do that too. I've heard a lot of people either pre-recorded, and I'm trying to get into that too, is to have, even though people can't see shows now, what if they listen to one of my actors or one of my friends read something? So you're not wrong. Maybe at some point that's going to be a new fad until things
bringing back. I mean, what's old is new always. Yeah. But yeah, I think is it Our Town? They do that, the live sound effects and stuff. And the horse, click, 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 click. And man walked into the room and you take the shoes, I think it's very creative. It's definitely sound artist.
I agree. Absolutely. Well, speaking of creative, I'll touch on this too. You were saying you do a lot of production, which I'm sure takes a lot of creativity. Why don't you kind of describe, like, from the production side, how you have to kind of curate everything to bring everything together?
Okay, so right now what I do a lot in radio is actually commercials or spec spots, which are maybe go to a client and say, you should have a radio commercial. This is what it might sound like. So a lot of what I do is there's a short turnaround window for a lot of this. And it works with a lot of people. There's a salesperson who talks with the client, what story they want to tell, and usually a 30-second commercial. And then now, this hasn't always been the case, but as you know, people have small staffs, I usually voice it. And then, so literally me recording it. And then either I get music, I find what I think will work for the client based on past what they've done, or or they might give me something. They might have a produced piece with a jingle, and you put it all together, you edit it, make your voice sound bright and great. And then you send it back to the salesperson, and then they take it to the client. The client might love it. Hopefully they might want to change one word. Maybe they wrote it wrong. Sometimes we write for them. So it's not, I don't think it's exciting as it seems.
No, that's fantastic.
Well, I will say sometimes we do creative pieces. Like right now, what I was working on before I talked to you is we're doing a Santa show on the radio station where literally I get to talk to the big man. We have kids in the neighborhood, in the community, write their emails to Santa, and I give them to Santa so he can respond to the kids. And then putting all that together with the sound effects, and I play when I'm Santa's helper. I can't even say it, Santa's helper.
Santa's helper.
So yeah, I know I do like that Santy baby. But to change my voice, some things that we do, you can, it depends if I'm doing maybe I don't know, slang, they want a more mature voice or something serious, I might use a lower tone versus if I'm supposed to be young and really exciting or it's a sale,
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But then sometimes it's in production as well. I mean, playing with pitch and tone. So sometimes we get to do fun stuff like that. Or around Halloween, there was a few, fun pieces, their political campaigns. We did those too, and that's a little more serious tone, a different tone, or you change your voice because you don't want anyone to know it's you. But yeah, it just depends on, what it calls for. And sometimes, especially female voices are a hot commodity. There's not enough women in this business. So a lot of times, you're doing multiple spots, multiple clients, and you don't want it to sound like, I know.
For those of you who are listening on the audio, I'm trying to listen to Tonee while she's talking about a very important topic, and I went to go pick up my water, and the coaster got stuck to it and fell. Casually Molly, everybody. But go ahead. So
you're
women in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's not, so sometimes, you don't want to sound, the word, and again, I don't know if people hear this or just me because I'm a nerd with radio, but you don't want every spot, you don't want to listen to commercials and be like, isn't this the same person who just did the other stuff? So you want to, keep it fresh and something, new for the client and for the listener. So it is some, I guess voice artistry. And I would say the challenging thing in terms of creativity is making it all work, because you have a 30-second spot. A lot of people don't know, like it can't be like, oh, well, let's just do 38 seconds because we want to. No, we can't, because it's going to throw off when we do our syndicated show or something, it's going to throw off the timing of the show. That's like on TV. It's a 60-minute sitcom, period.
Right.
You can't say, well, we're going to do longer because we feel like it today. No. So how can you get everything in? How are your breaths and all that? You breathe from your diaphragm and, it's just a lot of that and making it work. And some of it is through editing.
Yeah.
Playing with pitch and speed and timing, but really it's just making your voice sound bright and to come through that music that might be playing underneath and picking the right stuff. It has to go with it. It's not so distracting. When you listen to a commercial, it's not the same as listening to your favorite song on the radio.
Right.
You hopefully don't even really notice it. It's just a pleasant background, that elevator music,
Yes. Well, you have a great voice. Like, that's why I'm so excited about this interview too. Obviously, so excited to see you. But even when you talked to me, last time I think I saw you, you and I and Bridget went to Katie's Pizza and we sat on the patio, and I was just like, she has a great voice for radio.
Thanks.
But hey, if you ever want to do TV, I'll vouch for you on that too. You look
Thanks.
great.
And I've done little TV stuff here and there, just never like, consistent as a regular gig.
That's okay.
No, and I appreciate that, because it's hard to believe. I mean, I can just think about maybe like 18 years ago, people would be like, you sound like good on radio. You have a good voice for radio. And I would just be like, I wish, like, roll your eyes, like, okay. And now this is what I'm so blessed to do all the time. I mean, literally now, mainly because of pandemic, I'm on the air 7 days a week, and I don't take it for granted. I'm really happy about it, and I love what I do. And I just wish every boy and girl and man and woman and child could, do something that just comes so naturally, that they love, that's fun, that they're passionate about. Because me, it's just like us talking now. That's what I do on my live show. Mm-hmm. It's the same, except they don't talk back. They don't ask me questions. I just get to go. No,
you're just like, well, that's what I'm here for. We got to showcase you, which is great. And I love how you were like, I know this isn't exciting, but everything you're talking about is seriously so exciting to me. And I know that listeners will feel the same way. Well, because it's so easy for people like me just to like I said, like when I would get up early in the morning, I would turn on I would open up Spotify. I would listen to some local radio stations, kind of hear what, people have going on. It's so easy just to hear. And I'm like, wow, these people are so talented, and it's so great to, have that. But, especially, I know you probably highlighted this, but I'll bring this back around because this is going to go into my next question. To be on the radio, people have to feel like, you're their friend and you can relate to them. And not even if you do the same thing, but it's just like what you said, like you're part of the community. So the fact that you're able, again, to touch people like that and be like, hey, I'm just like you, I'm in this community, we're in this together, especially, I always struggle a little bit, even though I have this on my YouTube page, not to go on a rant here, but I'm like, don't worry, we're casually in this together, and it's fine. But especially now when, we're trying to connect with people, but we can't, we need bright and vibrant personalities like you who are, keeping us connected, keeping us informed. I'm sure I said this earlier, but I wanted to reiterate that again. And just the fact that you have a personality that, your resume speaks for itself, that people keep hiring and keep wanting it around, that just speaks for you as a person and the work ethic you have and the character you have. So I hope that, oh my gosh, yeah, obviously I hope to see you soon, but I know we've got a strange time going on. But what I'll ask you, speaking of, you've got this resume, you're doing what you love, you clearly are super happy. What advice would you give to people who were maybe in your position such and such years ago that are interested in pursuing your field, or just in general for this time?
Ooh, that is a great question. And I would have answered it so much differently in February. Yes. Honestly, this is advice I have given someone this year. Right now, it is good. You do need to have a passion. You do need to have dreams, and goals. But at this time in our world, you also have to be realistic. And someone told this to me too, because it was a leap of faith with me moving and things weren't, 100% in place. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And someone gave me this advice too. You got to pay your bills and you got to feed yourself, no matter what. And sometimes your dreams don't work totally into that, or what's the most fun. So be realistic with yourself at this time period. So if that means, maybe we're going to have a great media internship, but that really doesn't go with your rent right now and your other job laid you off because of the pandemic. You got to do what you have to do. Don't starve. Don't go in debt at this point for your dream. This is not the time probably to do that. And if you're blessed that maybe, someone's helping you out, but also take sacrifice. I was an adult, and I think this is more common now, that adults who aren't married, who even have a college degree, that you live at home with your parents, and look at that. And I also say, look at the silver lining in things. Like I think back now, the time that I was a grown woman living with my parents was a blessed time to get to know them in that way, to not have to pay rent, to not have to buy food. allowed me to have my dreams now. The other thing I will say is most of my friends in this industry, they're not going to tell you like, oh, I graduated with my communication or theater degree or whatever, and now at 21, I make 90,000 a year. No, that is not the reality. So also be realistic and know a lot of us have sacrificed a lot. And another great piece of advice someone gave me, there's a difference between working hard and learning and growing and doing everything and being taken advantage of. And it's gray. There's a lot of gray area, but try to keep that in mind and find that balance, which is so hard. But take opportunities that aren't taking advantage of you, but no, you will work hard. There will be late nights. But if you're passionate about it, it's worth it. And for me, and what makes this feel hard too is many people would do it for free, and I wouldn't have close to early in my life. Because it's fun and I like it, but a lot of people want it just as bad as you. And there's not a lot of opportunity right now. And also my suggestion would be kind of how I started. Take any opportunity that is given. To be honest, when I was given the opportunity to be in radio promotions, I didn't want to be in radio promotions. I had just graduated from St. Louis University. I had a degree. I wanted to do all this and thought I was, that would have been the worst mistake I ever would have made, So take any opportunity, even if it's not exactly what you want to do. It's a foot in the door, and it's hard to wedge your foot through those doors because most of them are locked and you need a key card to get in. So if someone's going to give you that, take it. But no, you might have to work your other full-time job. I mean, there were times when I was literally, now I'm on my soapbox, sorry.
That's okay. I love this. This is great.
Yeah.
Keep
But
going.
I mean, I felt like, it was like 2 full-time jobs. I would work my great job that was paying for my car, paying for where I live. And then, all night I'm going to spend working on my craft and my dream. Thank goodness I'm not doing that at the moment, but that's what got me where I'm at. And sometimes, and it was hard. It wasn't sustainable for a life. No, but for a short period to push, sometimes you got to push. And right now, if someone's going to give you that opportunity, go for it, take it. But again, and it's not easy. I wish I could tell someone it's like this line, just know when it's your time to say, this isn't working for me, or, I do need to make $10,000 more this year to be able to take care of my household needs, be honest with yourself and your talent as well. People, and that's a hard one too, because there are haters out there or who want what you want and trying to claw you down. But then some people be honest, and maybe you're not as talented in some areas, and you have to invest in yourself. But it's hard to invest in yourself when you're not getting compensated for what you're doing. So again, that's a balance, keep learning and educating yourself. But also eventually you want to make a little money.
Yeah. No, I think that's real talk too. And that's why I always ask that question, because I feel like a lot of times when you ask a question like that, at least for me, like people are always like, what's your advice for producing a podcast? And I've only been doing this for like a year and a half, almost 2 years, but I always tell people, it's not going to be a perfect line. Like you knew exactly how I started. I was like, hey, Tonee, are you available? I haven't seen you in a minute. which is exactly what I did tonight. So clearly I haven't changed at all.
You have, whatever.
But
This is me.
It's just you, and I love you. But it's interesting to me. You have to do exactly that extra push. And for people, a lot of people who listen to this podcast are majority wise, like in the arts or comedy or entertainment, musicians. There is always, and again, it's such a cliche word to use, and eventually I'll find a good vernacular, word for it. But, there is always that hustle. And I was just talking about this actually last week with my other guest. I get so tired of people telling me, like, if they see me doing all these things, like, not everybody, it's just, but there is always a few, and you're like, basically people are saying this, but, I'll share this podcast on Facebook, and, I'll do shows, or I'll do a Zoom, or I'll write a play, or I'll do something. And, I have a day job too, just like everybody else does. But, a lot of people, it always frustrates me when people are like, you know, you need to take some time for yourself and like you need to like slow down. Like this is like fun work for me. Like I enjoy, I enjoy going to my day job. I do like where I work, but my day job allows me to do my craft and do what I want to do. And I am more than willing to put all the time in the world to putting my day job in and then also doing my craft if it is fulfilling for me and it makes me happy. So it's not because I'm trying to be like, oh, look at all the things like I'm doing. And I'm, you know, because a lot of people also just love to brag about being busy. Like, oh, I'm just so exhausted. Like, I'm really not. Like, you know what you know how I'm, you know, the people I'm talking about. They're like, oh, I'm just so tired. And look at all the things I'm doing. And it's just a lot. Oh, like I hate those people. They're so annoying to me because I'm like, then what the fuck are you doing? And I hate to like, I don't really cuss a lot on here, but I don't understand. I don't get it. I'm like, what is the point then? If like you were that miserable, then stop. But I am not miserable. In fact, like there's almost like, even though like exactly like if you hadn't pushed yourself and had worked as hard as you did, you wouldn't be comfortably sitting in front of your fireplace mantle doing like,
and that's so true. It's so true. And Molly, another thing I will say about that is you have to, there's a lot of sacrifice, but you have to know what you have to have in life and what you can give up. Yes. And I suggest, especially for younger folks, like save your money. Oh yeah. And that's, gosh, even when I was in school, an actor told me that, like a professional actor, they said, you know, in these entertainment type fields, one day you're going to get a really nice check. And then maybe for a whole year, you might get nothing.
Yes.
So to be able to balance that out, like you'll learn, like for me, gotta have the nails done. Like I almost like,
we all have our thing. We all have our thing. It's okay.
And so that comes out to, you know, a little bit every month, you know, that could, but there's other things. Okay. Well, different things like with my hair, I can find out, or maybe, you know, you got a little cousin who will do that for you. Or do you have to have the most expensive makeup? For foundation, I do, but but certain things, okay, then I buy cheap lipstick. I don't know. Like you find ways, or like for me, where I live, I love my house, and that was a little bit more of an investment for me. But that was important to me, being away from my family. I didn't want to come home every day like, here I am alone in a new city. No, I wanted to feel like for it to wrap its arms around me when it comes in. So that was something that I was like, okay, can I cut somewhere else to add to this pot? Yeah, you know, but like I said, you gotta pay your bills, and you should be genuinely overall happy. There are those moments. Everyone has those moments, and like COVID, no one expected this. A lot of people lost their job, but someone asked me earlier this year, like, oh my gosh, I don't have a job. I don't know how to do this. And I'm like, Walmart, Target, all these. I'm like, again, was that their ideal? Is that what they wanted to do? But I'm like, if you're telling me you need, you know, a few $100 more in the next like month, well, that's the option that's going to get you that. I mean, we make choices and we make sacrifice, but if that's not something you're willing to do, well, that's fine. But you got to understand and find ways, because there's someone else who's being creative and working hard and finding that way, and will do what you won't. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, you know, it's been, like I said, it's been like such a journey. I hate to be like, it's been such a journey during this time, but it really has. Like people are trying to like figure things out. And like 2020 has been such a year. I almost forgot. So my birthday was the day after Election Day, when we still didn't know who was president.
Oh, nice. That's exciting.
Right. Yeah. So exciting. So it was like so stressful because people were like, happy birthday. Yeah. And I had to remember, I was like, you know what? Like that is so sweet that people are taking the time out of their day to like wish me a happy 30th birthday, even though we're stressed out. So even with like all the like the little things, and you're totally right with like monetary things, it's amazing how, what I will end on a positive note here, it's amazing how people have come together to try to make things work, trying to help other people, trying to help essential workers right now, which like, you know, if you're listening to this, if you're an essential worker, I am too, but I'm like putting people in apartments for a living. I'm not like saving people's lives. So it's like,
there's different kind of essential workers. I'm essential, but in a different way. Yeah. I'm not in a hospital, but
finally I am essential to somebody. Yeah. But it's just amazing to see how people come together. And that's why I love about this podcast is each week, like, even if I have some cancellations or I have to like, revamp my plan, it's okay. Because at the end of the day, what I always have to remember is that like, I get to connect with somebody for like an hour or so. And now we got to talk, and that was fantastic.
Exactly. And the thing I love about a live show is that people can call in during the day. I'll answer, unless I'm doing something. And it's amazing. There's this woman who's called me a couple times, and like we cried together on the phone. I prayed for her. Like and I've never met her. Yeah. And I mean, but we talk every day, so to speak. We, connect in that way. And you don't even know. I mean, in anything you do, not just in an entertainment field, but you really, especially since we have a little larger reach, you really don't know how you affect people and inspire people like you do. And some you may never know about, but now you do. And that's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this was lovely. Thank you so much, Tonee, for coming and joining me. I love that I got to see your house a little bit.
No, I love it. Got a little Christmas. I don't have my Christmas tree up, but I don't even want to say it. Poinsettia. That's
poinsettia, something like that.
Yeah. That's another thing I on air. I'm like, but yes, thank you. I love it. I love it here. I love St. Louis. I miss St. Louis, but Central Illinois has been really good to me.
Yes.
And it's beautiful here. So thank you. Thank you for coming in to my living room.
Oh my God. Yes. Thank you for joining us here at the studio. Why don't you tell us too, for any fans that have listened to this and they're like, what a fun personality, social media wise, or just like where you like the station that we should listen to you on. Why don't you just tell us where we can find you?
Sure. On Facebook, just search Tonee. Tonee is how I spell it, being extra, on stage. And then on Instagram and Twitter, just Tonee. I'm Tonee Roper, Toneeroper. And I'm on, like I said, a number of different stages, but my main boo is 99.7 The Mix in Springfield, Illinois. And I will tell you, my parents, I was just home for Thanksgiving for a few days. My mom's always listening from St. Louis. You can stream us live, 997themix.com. And there is a radio app as well. But if you follow me on the social medias, I'll get you to the other stations. 99.7 The Mix, we play a lot of, it's 90s 2KN today. So mainly a top 40 popular music station, but I'm on 3 other hip hop stations. So I got something for everybody. Don't worry. I got you. That's what
I love about you. You just got something for everyone. You just relate to everybody, and it's fantastic.
Definitely. I love it. I love music. That's what it is. I love music and I love people. So made it easy.
She does. Yeah. And then one last thing, speaking of your family, and I've met them. They're super nice. I met them at Shake Shack, which was for your birthday. You were like, we're going to Shake Shack. And I was like, all right, I'll be there. I think I just had to work and then I swung on over afterwards.
It was awesome.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about the family business here, the Roper's Ribs?
Thank you.
Yes.
So and actually that's kind of what connected me to the restaurant. Someone who ordered some food once is how I got on the radio, really. Use those connections. But I always tell people I've done retail, radio, and restaurant business. My parents' restaurant, Roper's Ribs. Yeah, the 3 R's is my thing. Roper's Ribs in St. Louis. I believe this is our 27th year in business. So that's been, since like 2nd grade. It's been great. And they have, and I don't say this, I mean, you can go try it if you don't believe me, but it is the best. I mean, we've gone to Memphis and different places. I mean, it's really good. I ate a lot of ribs over Thanksgiving. Like, forget the turkey. I don't get this too often. But good smoked meat. I also love the briskets, my favorite.
Ooh.
But they're in North County at the corner of Jennings Station Road in West Florissant, right off of Highway 70, only about, less than 5 minutes. About 10 minutes from downtown. Mm-hmm. Yeah, about 10 minutes from the airport. So a lot of people just get off the plane and, when we were traveling, or when people were going to Cardinals games, we'll come straight to the restaurant. And we should be shipping very soon. Like this year, in 2020, we will be shipping some ribs. So that will be a thing. Go to ropersribs.com, and again, they're on all the socials. But that has been my rock. I will never, sometimes people don't want to say, where they came from, what their parents do, but that restaurant has given me my all. And I'm so proud of my parents. And especially, you see, during a pandemic, to stay in business and to do it for that long. Restaurant business in general is like this. So I'm very proud of them, and I am grateful they have allowed me to connect and meet people and do what I do.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well,
Thank
I'll
you for
definitely
asking.
give them a call. Yeah, now I'm hungry. So who knows what's going to happen after this?
People think I'm just sitting here eating ribs every day, and I'm not.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what maybe that's what I'll do. But what I always ask at the end of each podcast, what are you going to casually do now that our interview is over?
Oh, gosh, I'm going to this is so a millennial thing. I'm going to casually see all the calls and maybe some dating app misses I got.
All right. Okay.
So, some social and
yeah.
Was there something else work wise? And I think there's something I need to do for work. I'm sure. I'm sure.
I love that we got our dating life in check, but there's just like something we've got going on for work.
Yeah, I'm like, I set an alarm and it went off, and I was like, oh, I had to do something by a certain time, and I don't remember what it was. Work related. Because it's fun. Always doing it. I'm going to casually keep working.
Casually keep working, keep dating. All right, Tonee. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And the song that you're about to hear is Sorry Not Sorry by Bates, our local STL rapper. Have a good one, Tonee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's understood don't even have to be explained, my nigga. Yeah. I love y'all. I love y'all. Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
Trying to find peace, been through a lot, guess I expected too much. A cruel world tells you your best is less and it's never enough. I think I lost a couple homies, cause they ain't acting the same. Unpacking my shame while standing in the dirt on my name. A soul bruised, being abused, I kept it quiet and sunk. Nobody heard me yell for help, but I screamed at the top of my lungs. Tickle disappeared on a nigga, then Freaky called and hung up. Started to think that if I sink, my niggas won't give a fuck. Like where my niggas when I'm homeless and trying to crash for a night. Like where my niggas when I break down crying about losing my wife. The secret things the people never seen stacking up on me, and that was picked up by the ones some say was barely my homies. I guess I'm bothered by the fact that I had to leave all I own just to find peace, and that my homies will let me do it alone. I talk to niggas every day until I got with this woman. I'm blindsided by it all, cause I never saw the shit coming. Damn, that shit hurt, I don't know what's worse, the pain or the clear this shit go. I wanted to weep, I wanted to scream, but nothing was heard but these walls. But I just left a lot of shit that never got a resolve. I love my niggas, so I'm still gonna be right there when they call. Wondering if God trying to get through to me. Mixed signals keep confusing me. They checking for your girl, but I ain't ready for them choosing me. This could've ended beautifully, could've went about it suitably, but soon you'll see the gruesome things you'll do to me. You'll shame me, and everybody cool with it. I guess they say it's hard knocks. I lost the light inside my eyes. Yeah, I was in pure shock. Imagine everything you love cruising first, then hit a hard stop. I was angry, like the whole world could suck a dick. I'm talking all cops, like why I gotta lose it all again just to regain from the fall? Like why I gotta be the chosen one? Yes, I was mad at God, mad that I lost it all again, mad that I raised another kid, mad that my woman didn't love me, mad I had to go through all this shit, mad that I needed a place to stay, mad that nobody had shit to say, mad that my Christmas was some shit, mad that my homies was MIA. Thank you for truth, for giving me peace. Thank you for Kristen and GA. Thank you for Cornbread and Alan Gates. Thank you for Christian Will K. Thank you for everyone who listened and let me cry on their shoulder. Thank you for the people who pushed me forward when I said it was over. Funny how things go when they don't want your own fam to accept you. Cause everybody she warned me about came back to my rescue. Another day, feeling drained with nobody and nothing. And I ain't lying, I'm straight tired, sick and tired and struggling. It's another lesson learned, another tear in the bucket. Just know your girl ain't dying.